My family called my dream a hobby until I sold it for $50 million. My mother has this specific way of clearing her throat when she thinks I'm being unrealistic. It's not a loud sound, it's a soft, polite little ahem that basically means, Maya, honey, stop talking before you embarrass yourself. It was Christmas 2018. We were at my parents' house in a suburb just outside of Seattle. The air smelled like pine needles and overpriced candles, and my dad was already 3 beers deep, complaining about the Seahawks. I was 26, working a perfectly good job in corporate HR, and that's when I said it. I told them I was quitting. I told them Leo and I were going to take our entire savings, every single penny, and start a company that designed modular, smart glass partitions for tiny homes. The table went dead silent. My brother Sean, who works in real tech, literally snorted into his mashed potatoes. My dad didn't even look up from the TV. He just said, Maya, why would you throw away a salary and a 401k for a hobby? A hobby. That was the word that stuck. Not a business, not a vision. A hobby. My mother did her little throat clear and asked if I could pass the gravy. And just like that, the most important decision of my life was treated like a footnote at the bottom of a grocery list. But Leo, my husband, he just reached under the table and squeezed my hand. He'd already put in his notice at the architecture firm. He was an associate making $140,000 a year, and he was giving it all up to build prototypes in a storage unit that smelled like damp cardboard and old tires. The next 2 years, they weren't gritty in a cool startup way. They were just exhausting. We moved out of our apartment and into a studio that was basically a glorified hallway. We stopped going out. We stopped buying new anything. I remember once crying in the middle of a Target because a pack of fancy paper towels was $6, and I knew. We only had $22 left in the extra budget for the month. We lived on frozen burritos and generic brand coffee that tasted like burnt dirt. My parents would call and they'd ask how the project was going. They never called it a company. They'd say, how's the little glass thing coming along? The little glass thing was failing. By mid-2020, we were almost out of cash. The tiny home market was too niche. We had the tech, this incredible electrochromic glass that could turn from clear to opaque with a gesture, but nobody wanted it for their backyard sheds. I remember sitting on the floor of our studio surrounded by blueprints and unpaid utility bills. I looked at Leo and I said, maybe they were right. Maybe this is just a hobby we can't afford. Leo didn't argue. He didn't give me a pep talk. He just walked over, picked up a piece of the glass, and held it up to the window. He said, Maya, look at the light. It isn't just for tiny homes. It's for privacy. And that was the pivot. We stopped marketing to individuals. We started marketing to hospitals and high-end offices. Privacy on demand. No curtains, no dust, no germs. Just click. We called the new version Opal Systems. We spent the next year living like ghosts. We were working 18-hour days. I was the CEO, the sales team, and the person who cleaned the office at night. Leo was the head of engineering and the guy who delivered the crates in a rented U-Haul. And then the world noticed. A major medical conglomerate out of California called us. They didn't want to buy our glass. They wanted to buy everything. The patents, the tech, the brand, the whole little glass thing. The day we signed the papers for $50 million, I didn't feel like celebrating. I didn't feel like buying a Ferrari or a mansion. I just went home, sat on our crappy, stained sofa, and I slept. I slept for 14 hours straight. When I finally woke up, I had 16 missed calls. Most of them were from my mother. I called her back, and before I could even say hello, she was talking. She'd seen the news in a business journal. She sounded different. Her voice was higher, faster. She kept saying, Maya, we always knew you had that spark. I told your father years ago that girl is going to be a star. I stayed quiet. I remembered the ahem. I remembered the gravy. And honey, she continued, her voice dropping into that confidential tone. Your brother Sean, things have been difficult at his firm. They're restructuring. And your father's back. The surgery isn't fully covered. It's a lot all at once. She didn't ask. Not yet. But the air was thick with the expectation. The hobby was now the family bank. I've sent them money. Of course I have. I paid for the surgery. I helped Sean with his mortgage. But every time I write a check, there's this hollow feeling in my chest. They love the success. They love the security. They love the $50 million. But I still wonder, do they love the girl who was crying in Target over $6 paper towels? Or do they only love the version of me that can make their problems disappear? Success doesn't fix the cracks in a family. It just fills them with gold. It looks beautiful from a distance, but you still know exactly where the breaks are. Last week, we had dinner at their house. My dad was showing off his new truck, the one I paid for. My mom was talking about their upcoming cruise, the one I booked. And then I mentioned that Leo and I were thinking about starting a new venture, something in sustainable energy. My mother paused. She set down her wine glass. She cleared her throat, that same soft, light ahem. Well, honey, she said with a tight little smile, don't you think you should just enjoy what you have? Why take another risk? I looked at Leo. He looked at me. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel the sting. I just smiled back, took a sip of my water, and said, don't worry, Mom. It's just a little hobby.